I've been looking all over for you. We gotta go down to the Bears Only Cafe and talk bearsness. Listen, you know that Bears Necessity contest? We've got problems. So listen, we'll go down, we'll talk business, and hey, everything will be okay. I love this guy. Mwah.
Three Films and a Podcast has no claim of ownership on any film footage used in this episode. All film footage is owned in its entirety by the copyright holders and is used solely with the intent of film criticism, commentary, and education under fair use law. And just like every car in Too Fast, Too Furious, this podcast contains spoilers. Enjoy.
Welcome back to Three Films and a Podcast. We are excited tonight to be covering the movie from 1986, Babes in Toyland, starring Drew Barrymore and Keanu Reeves. Before we get into it, just a recap of how we select these movies for our movie club. Typically, we each choose a category and we assign that category to one another, and we fulfill that category by nominating a movie. This time was a little bit different. We decided to delegate the responsibility over to our significant others, and they assigned the categories to each other and made the decision. This particular one was supposed to be a Drew Barrymore movie. And to give a little bit of background on it, my wife and I had been feuding about Keanu Reeves for several weeks.
As one does.
Yeah, as one does. It was an ongoing feud. A lot of late nights, a lot of going to bed a lot of going to bed in separate beds, honestly, over this. And
Turned into the Dick Van Dyke Show over there.
Right. I mean, we could not see eye to eye.
And wait, what was the crux of the argument?
I mean, essentially, it's just, we're watching a Keanu Reeves movie and she's just not convinced that he's that great. And
this is tough.
As the conversation went on, it dawned on me that she just hasn't had a ton of exposure to him. It also didn't help that she kept confusing Keanu for Nick Cage, which is never
that does not help.
That's never a good thing. So, anyways,
wait. Hold on. Who do you think is more insulted by that, Nick Cage or Keanu Reeves?
Who knows, man?
I think Nick Cage has sort of embraced who and what he is.
That's what I mean. He'd be like, "What the fuck? I'm Nick Cage. You don't mistake me for anyone." Like,
I was in Wicker Man.
I am the Ghost Rider.
I'm like a prickly pear.
Oh man. So anyway, I started highlighting movies that she'd seen Keanu in, and she likes every single one of them. And so then she came to the verdict that, okay, I like all of Keanu's movies. I just don't like Keanu. And anyway, we ended up spending the next month or so watching the John Wick trilogy, the Bill and Ted trilogy, and literally as much Keanu as we could fit into a small period of time. Just around this time, Ashley had given Angie the category of choosing a Drew Barrymore movie. And it just happened to work out where she was going through Drew Barrymore's IMDb and she saw Babes in Toyland. And Babes in Toyland was one of her childhood favorites. Very similarly, not quite to the extent of Mixed Nuts was for my family, but they had the VHS tape. They rolled it frequently through the holiday season. And so she saw Babes in Toyland and she's like, oh, this is going to be easy, Babes in Toyland. And then we realized that Keanu Reeves is also in that movie. So it's like perfect.
Win-win.
It just, it felt like.
It's one of her favorite movies from her childhood and she didn't realize Keanu Reeves was in it.
She didn't realize.
She truly hates Keanu.
Like, yeah, I know. But
blocked him out.
She's coming around to Keanu. I think she's just coming to understand Keanu, because if you're to compare Keanu to Adam Driver, obviously there's a bit of a range difference there. But Keanu does Keanu. No one can do Keanu the way Keanu does Keanu.
I mean, it's true. People give him crap for his acting ability or lack thereof, but knowing that the Wachowskis, talked about having Will Smith as Neo, it's just like, And I'm sure that would have been a fun movie, but it's Keanu. He has to do that. He has to be in these roles. Like Point Break I love Patrick Swayze, but it's 50% as great just because of Keanu. It's such a good, like, it's, I don't know. There's just roles that have to be him.
I probably would have messed the Matrix up. I would have ruined it. So I did Jaw a favor.
Yeah, I don't know. He's great in whatever he does.
I'm all for Keanu. Like, I am definitely pro Keanu, team Keanu over here. But I will say I do sort of sympathize with Angie's argument. Like, he's not a great actor, but he's like great on screen, and he's like really charismatic and charming and fun to watch. And like, for whatever reason, you just like root for the guy. Like for whatever, like, he could easily be typecast as like the douchebag or the whatever. Mm-hmm. But for whatever reason, he's just this like lovable hunk, and you just like, I don't know, he could just do no wrong.
I think he's found what works for him. You know, like his cameo in Always Be My Maybe is one of the best parts of that movie.
Oh man.
He knows what he's good at, and he's really started to embrace that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it is his delivery on like certain lines feels like monotone, and like it feels like bad acting, but then at the same time it's like John Wick, some of his lines are just like so bland and like monotone, but it's like, but that's who John Wick is to everybody now.
It's sort of how, like,
calculated.
It's like the Terminator, like it worked that Schwarzenegger couldn't act or deliver the lines because he's supposed to be a robot, so it's like if you write it into the role, then it just works.
Yep.
Come with me if you want to live.
It's also amazing, like, you look at Keanu as a teenager or a young actor, like in Babes in Toyland and Bill and Ted. It's amazing that how different of an actor he was then as he is now. And like that sort of transformation, because he can't pull off that type of role anymore. Some people go their whole career and they could technically just jump right back into what they did before. They're just, 30 years older. Keanu, I don't think can. Aside from like, I mean, he kind of did it in Bill and Ted, but he wasn't the same type of Bill or type of Ted.
Yeah.
But that'll be interesting. But I mean, I guess to kick off into Babes in Toyland, moving on from that backstory, Ben, can you hit us with some of the details on this movie?
Yeah, for sure. This, like you mentioned earlier, this is a 1986 film. Director's name is Clive Donner. Tagline is: a girl awakes in a magic world and joins a toy master and storybook figures against an evil doer. I had to look into this. Like, obviously, I think almost everyone is familiar with Babes in Toyland, just the overall idea of it, but I wanted to look into it because I was curious how, like, when it was created and basically how many remakes we've had, because there's been a bunch. We finished watching it and Prime was like, you also might like these. And it was two different versions of this movie. It was like, oh no, I don't need to watch. Like, I don't need to keep watching this. But one thing that I found out, is that it was originally an operetta, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it was from the people that had such success with the stage musical for The Wizard of Oz. And they thought they wanted to keep kind of doing this like fantasy family musical. So they thought, let's do it at Christmas time and let's do it with, Mother Goose nursery rhymes. I don't know how much of, there's a part in the movie where Mother Goose is introducing like, oh, this is like little Jack Horner and just like all these different characters. And I don't know how much kids are familiar with, Mother Goose these days. How much that resonated with them, but it definitely was, kind of made you aware of the time frame of when this one was created and everything. I did learn in my brief search, the version that I wish maybe that we had seen is Laurel and Hardy did a version of this in 1934, which I think would have been really funny to see.
I'm sure that's awesome.
Between 1950 and 1960, there were at least 3 TV movies made of this. And I like that Wikipedia can only define it as at least, because there may have been more made that they just don't know about. Like, we know of 3, there may have been more. I don't know how many channels there were in the 50s, but it's just like, listen, we scanned all 6 channels. This is what we found. Then there's the 1961 Disney version and an animated version that came out in 1997 along with this one. So I think 97 is the last time that we've seen this remade. I'm curious, we've talked before about remakes when we got to the Addams Family and how you can like modernize it with like current day CGI. I would be curious if, this could get redone with maybe some more modern characters, like maybe dropping the Mother Goose aspect of it. Like I get it, that's what it's about, but maybe, if you can update it, it'll hit some more, with the children, with the target demographic here. But I did think it was interesting. I'm just gonna read my letterbox real quick because I wrote this before I did my research, and I just said, I think the Cincinnati Board of Tourism had an emergency meeting about how to drive traffic to their town. Someone in the room said we should make the Wizard of Oz, but at Christmas, and it's Cincy, not Oz. And then everyone agreed, and this is what happened. So like to learn that it kind of was based around the success of the stage musical The Wizard of Oz made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it's funny. Like when I read your review, I had I literally just finished watching the movie right before we started recording, and I took a break and went out to get a drink and was talking to Alex, and she's like, "Oh, how's the movie?" I was like, "It's like if The Wizard of Oz was a Christmas movie and all the characters were from Mother Goose stories." And then I saw your review and I was like, "Oh, yeah, the same vibe." Like, I'm glad I'm not alone there. I was like, because I was thinking, I'm like, is that? I mean, I guess that's the closest thing I could think to describe it, and so I felt vindicated.
Yeah, and I mean, it's exactly, Ashley was the one that brought that to my attention when we were watching. Like, oh, it's kind of like Wizard of Oz, when everything's happening. I'm like, oh, I guess it is. And then it really hit home, at the end when everything happens. Like, oh, yes, this is basically a carbon copy of The Wizard of Oz. I still had a good time with it. I mean, we'll talk later about our favorite parts and maybe what we thought, could have improved it or anything. But overall, I'm glad to say I watched it. It's always fun to see a young Drew Barrymore, and yeah, it was a good movie.
It's a good movie. Ben says it's a good movie. I can't wrap my is it? Like, do I think this is a good movie? Because I'll be honest, like I was entertained the whole time. But I don't know if it was in the same way that like you're entertained when you're watching The Room. You know what I mean?
For sure. Not
that these are like comparable movies by any stretch, but it's like I didn't hate my time watching it. Towards the end, I really did enjoy it. And you ask about my favorite parts. A lot of my, how can I roll this all up? I guess like I can give like a little bit of my backstory about this movie. So I had seen this before, sort of like Angie, like it was a movie that was in our house. We had the VHS or whatever, and I'd seen it before, and I was a kid, and I remember like more or less liking it. And it stuck with me to the point where I still think of Cincy Wutsky whenever I hear Cincinnati. And no one ever gets it. Like, no, like I'll always say like, oh, Cincy Wutsky. And then everyone's like, what?
What are you talking about?
And it's like, so I kind of have like, it's been like something that happens internally, like in my head. Mm-hmm. And so now at least I can share it with a few people. And I remember like liking the movie, but my memory of it was that it was like this very surreal, very like, I don't really know if I could put my finger on why I thought it was weird. And like, now that I watch it as an old man, I wonder if it was like, I still don't know like what they were trying to do with this movie. Mm-hmm. Like, were they trying to make it a kid's movie? Were they trying to make it this like meta in-joke about how bad this movie is? Was it supposed to be like a good, bad movie? Like some of the jokes and some of the writing, like that was some of my favorite parts, was just like the idiosyncrasy between like the tone of the movie, right? Like, yeah, like when she flies in after slamming her head into a tree going 70 miles an hour or whatever on their sled, like, mm-hmm. She flies in and like you see all these characters and you're like, it's still unclear to me if they were supposed to look like like bears and gooses walking mm-hmm. around, or if they were supposed to look like people in bear costumes, or if it's supposed to just be like, that's what a kid would see in their dreams. Like, I don't know if they nailed it or if they blew it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I can't decide, like, I don't know. A part of me feels like, especially knowing now that they were going for a Wizard of Oz thing, And to answer your questions, one of my favorite parts was the costumes of all the goblins and stuff, and basically anything revolving around Barnaby's lair and his world. I thought was really cool, and it was fun, and like the monsters were like interesting looking and cool. And I just feel like they blew all of their wardrobe budget on Barnaby and his monsters, and they were like, fuck, the rest of the cast is supposed to be bears and like geese and
go to
whatever.
the local high schools and borrow their mascot.
Right. So they're just like, I guess we'll just get whatever we can get and make it work. And and it does work, but it doesn't at the same time. And it's like, I never knew if I was laughing with the movie or laughing at it. And like some of my favorite, or some of my I think my hands down, my favorite line was, right towards the end, and they're about to go have this big battle scene with the goblins, and they're one of them says, "Oh, we gotta get the toy master to help," and Drew Barrymore says,
"That's what I'm afraid of. He's man of peace, and this is war, Mary."
I was like, "What the fuck is this? Like this, that's not a line that this child says in a movie like this. You know what I mean? Like the level of insight and like understanding of the world around her was just like, the tone just was all over the place. Right. And so I think my favorite part about it was the fact that it was just so all over the place. And then that just made me laugh the whole time. Like like I said, I could never tell if I was in on the joke or if it was just funny, you know? Like, Who was in on the joke, me or them? I still don't know.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. You mentioned their outfits and stuff, and this is a really, I guess, easy comment to say, but I wish, given what we had just watched our last watch party, kind of got more of the Star Wars route. Cause you go, into the cantina and there's people there that are obviously humans and obviously not, but it's pretty clear like what is what. Whereas in this one, and I understand the budgets are different and none of this makes any sense, but it's just like, I don't know. Are these people like dressed up like bears, or am I supposed to think that these are like bears, like just like sentient bears who are walking around? I don't know.
My memory as a kid, from what I remember, I feel like I remembered them looking more animatronic, right? I think in my kid brain, I saw like Mother Goose Land, which I guess kudos to them. I think that's what they were going for. But now that I watched, I'm like, were they? It's so obvious that it's just people in big bear suits. At one point, you can see a guy's neck between his big head and the rest of his costume.
Especially the toy soldiers, they'd have the mask, but you just see everything behind them. But and I just feel like I need to clarify. I don't think this was a good movie. I think this was a good movie for the pod. That's what I like. Sure, this was good for us to watch here. But this was a strange movie. It definitely had some parts that I enjoyed about it, and we can get into those. But
he's a man of peace, not a man of war. He can't help us.
My favorite line was, so Keanu's character Jack in the fantasy world, his best friend in both the fantasy world and in the real world is this Georgie Porgy character. Georgie Porgy breaks him out of jail, and he says something like, "I'm not made out to be a hero." And Keanu says something like,
"I think you cut about 3 heroes out of you, old buddy."
"I could make 3 heroes out of you." It's like, why is he throwing this fat joke at his best friend?
Thanks for breaking me out of jail.
Thanks, fatty. Let's go.
I mean, some of it was kind of dark, It's like,
for sure.
Wait, why are they getting married? Like, oh, well, Barnaby bought my mom's mortgage, and he said, "I'll pay it off if you let me marry your daughter." It's like, who came up with this? It's like a problem.
That's what I mean. Like, my memory as a kid was that it was like a surreal, sort of like dark, not scary, but like for me, it felt weird. It felt off. And now looking back, I'm like, that's because they blew their budget on the goblins. And I don't know. It just,
I'd be
Zach and Mac
to see like the inner workings of the TV movie in the 1980s and like what went on and like what the budgets were and like, I guess like the reasoning behind like producing a made for TV movie versus like, I couldn't tell, like, was this supposed to be a bigger budget movie that had budget cuts and then there's like, let's just release it on TV, or I don't know. But I mean, Drew Barrymore and Keanu weren't stars yet, so
yeah, it's a good like early vehicle. Like this is the kind of stuff that's fun to go back and look at. You know, like we talked about before with other shows where you can go back, like, oh, they all went on to do stuff. You know, like Freaks and Geeks or something along those lines.
Yeah.
So it's fun to go back and watch this, and you know, Mr. Miyagi's the most like noticeable person in this movie. You know,
For
I guess you know, as you have like young Keanu and young Drew, but yeah, I still, you know, it was an interesting watch. Like I did have some stuff like some of my favorites. The Cincinnati song threw me off the very first time when they go into it, because it's funny, we talked about Keanu, but he starts out with like saying like C-I-N, and like just like the way he was saying it, I just kept hearing like I-M-N-F-B-I-H.
Bodie, this is your fucking wake-up call, man. I am an FB. I come from
C-I-N-C-I-N-N-A-T-I, Cincinnati.
Just like saying all these letters. It's like, is he gonna pull out a gun and shoot it in the sky right now? Like C-I-N. I don't know. Like that song was fun. And then just like the crash, and she just like comes flying out the back on the sled. Of like, I mean, they set it up. We knew it was gonna be there. Like this all it's all making sense.
She didn't want the sled in the first place.
No, she wanted, was it a blender? Was that the thing
right?
she wanted? Like,
I got you a great present. Don't ask what it is. It's a surprise.
I bet it's a new blender.
what's going on in that
Who is
household?
this
Like
little woman of the world?
11-year-old, like, I just want to eat. Like, get me a blender.
11-year-old philosopher, leader of men. Like,
oh my god. I also enjoyed the bumper car chase scene.
Oh my god,
that was just going on and on and on.
Yeah.
Like I just
like
what
how
do we
I
have
was like,
access to?
how many times is he gonna go between the two of them? Like, and then the
like,
final crash. I don't know if you guys noticed this. They shows them pass each other, and then there's like a crash off screen. And then they're all
really?
tangled up.
I did not notice it.
You just showed them go past, and then somehow, I don't know.
And then, yeah, like you mentioned, his like henchmen, Zach and Mac, and it's like they both look like a mixture of like Gargamel and Uncle Fester, you know, just like walking around with him and stuff. I'm like, oh, these are your top guys, huh? Top guys on the case. I don't know.
It is funny. Like we watch, like this is 1986. We just watched
Mm-hmm.
Empire Strikes Back, which is 1980, and then like recognizing that Labyrinth was in the 80s somewhere. Like,
yeah.
At first, I was being very forgiving to this movie with like how poor some of the costuming and like practical effects were. But when I realized all the stuff that had been created around that time, like this movie had no excuse other than a really low. It had to have been very low budget.
It should have dawned on me because I was watching it in 4:3 format aspect ratio, but I didn't realize it was a made-for-TV movie. So, like now hearing that, I'm like, well, duh. Obviously, it was just by watching it, but like, it makes now. Then it actually made more sense when I thought of it as a TV movie.
Which, I mean, those are a big deal back then, you know, it was the Sunday night, get the whole family around. But you talk about budget issues, and I don't disagree that I'm sure there were. But one of the things that we all learned is that the original cut of this movie is almost an hour longer than the one that we got that's been cut down to. It was like the first cut is like 140 minutes long. And then this one is 94. So there's like 43 extra minutes floating around. And I feel like the budget from that 43 like could have been put towards the 97 to make even just a little bit better.
Yeah.
And like,
I feel
what
like no one
is in that 43 minutes?
That's what I want to know. Cause like, even at 97, I'm just like, all right, we got it like 15 minutes ago. Like,
what if it's just 43 more minutes of that car chase?
Listen, the only thing I would want is if it's 43 minutes of Pat Morita. Just like that's what this movie needed for me. It's like
for me, it's the townspeople. I loved just like seeing the townspeople doing their shenanigans, their everyday life. It reminds me of like the SNL sketch Bear City. I don't know if you guys remember that. They did like the sketch of Bear City, this small segment, and it's basically like humans have to go into hiding because of like some asteroid. And so bears come out and basically resume human activity.
Oh, nice.
Anyway.
What is it on? Like my internet cut out. I didn't hear what it's from.
It's from Saturday Night Live.
Oh, okay. Nice. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I thought was funny too, is the beginning when she's coming down, like floating down, I guess the beginning of the Toyland area.
Yeah.
And there are some people that notice and they just like run for their lives. And then apparently like the 4 people holding the cake are just like, whatever, she'll land where she lands. You know, just like keep going. Everyone else is just like scared, like, what is this thing coming in? But yeah, I just wanted more Pat Morita, but I could say that for a lot of movies.
Yeah, I feel like I got what I needed out of this one. I don't think I need that extra 43, regardless of who's in it.
No, yeah. Overall, no. That 43 minutes is probably better being gone.
And having said that, I did have a good time watching the movie. I'm glad I watched it, but it's kind of like, meh. I don't know if I'll ever need to watch that one again.
Yeah.
So to jump into my review real quick before we move on, what I wrote on Letterboxd was that I'm in the position no one wants to be in, where you have to acknowledge how bad a movie is while also explaining why you loved watching every second of it.
Mm-hmm.
As bad as much of this was, I personally don't think any of it was unwatchable. The very worst of it were the musical numbers. It felt like it wanted to have a Wonka vibe, which now having spoken to you guys, it is way more of a Wizard of Oz vibe.
I could see the Wonka though. Like as soon as I read that in your review just now, I was like, oh yeah, that tracks for me.
Yeah, especially with like the Cookie Factory and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was my other favorite line. There's trouble at the Cookie Factory. I can't remember exactly what it was. I was dying.
Something's afoot at the Cookie Factory.
Yeah.
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Anyways.
Oh, it's so funny. But I put, it wanted to have a Wonka vibe, but the music and lyrical talent just weren't up to snuff. There was plenty of joy in seeing young Keanu and Drew doing their thing in 86. Keanu somehow still managed to be so cool in this movie despite the story and set. I'll never forget him peeling around the corner in one of those tiny pink cars, which there's one scene where he just like, you would have thought that it was like from Fast and the Furious, but he just comes around the corner and it's so funny.
There's a few where he's just like skidding the brakes and just you see the dust like piling up. Like he had it in him from the beginning. He's like, I'm flooring this thing.
I wonder if he's just like,
get there first.
He's just like, when did this happen in his IMDb? Sorry, I know we're jumping into something else here, but like for me, there has to be a point where he's just like, this movie's so fucking stupid. I'm going to just make this thing as fun as I can somehow.
I'm going to have as much fun as possible.
Someone saw that scene and was like, okay, I'm going to write Speed. Now I'm writing Speed.
Yes.
Everybody, I'm Jack Trabb in LAPD. We have a slight situation on the bus here. Ma'am, if you'll please sit down and deal with this.
No, I won't. You're scaring the shit out of these people.
Ma'am, please.
I put that I love this version of Santa Claus. Pat Morita. Who even knew?
Right.
Who even knew? There he was.
And this seems really like progressive for 1986.
Yeah, I thought
I'm curious like the feedback they got where it's like Pat Morita, like, I mean, even whatever, like a few years ago, you know, Megyn Kelly's like, Santa's white, don't worry, you know, like it's fine.
Right.
Like we're still arguing about this. Like, what kind of feedback did the network get back then? And be like, no, Mr. Miyagi's not my Santa, can't have this. But I loved it. I thought it was great. I'm just like, man, that was a strange bold move for them to take.
His lines weren't obviously like amazing, but I feel like he did Santa Claus justice. Like I love that version of Santa Claus.
Yeah,
it probably got a pass just because he was Mr. Miyagi. Like this was right after the second Karate Kid, and I feel like everyone loves Mr. Miyagi. So like,
same year, part 2.
He can be Santa. That's fine. Yeah.
If it's good enough for Daniel-san, it's good enough for me.
But I mean, throw him up there on my Santa Rushmore mountain. You know, maybe
did not expect it. Yeah.
Maybe we'll cover that in the next in the Christmas
good idea.
one.
I think it's good.
The real stars of this movie were the townsfolk. I could just watch that town for hours. Officer Bear was my favorite, but there were oddballs aplenty to enjoy. The toy soldier crying at the end was the icing on the cake.
It was like Vanderbeek level. Like in that teardrop. They should have done that on Rules of Attraction.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I was waiting for that snowflake to come down and land on.
Now I want to recut that scene with the toy soldier there instead of Vanderbeek. Oh man, it'd be so good.
It'd be so funny. I thoroughly enjoyed the Cincinnati song sung in the car because I'm a fool for those types of scenes. I mean, Wayne's World with Bohemian Rhapsody was, I think, my introduction to the everyone in the car is singing the song scenes.
Yeah.
But like, man, those scenes are always so fun for some reason. Like, once everyone's joining in on that, it's like I felt like an idiot sitting on my couch not knowing that song. Like, I wanted to sing along with them or know my part. And
I think it's like the best thing that you can relate to in a movie. You know, like we have all sung in a car before, you know, so just like, oh yeah, this is really enjoyable. Like I very vividly remember doing that with you, Fuzz. Like I think it was after a work Christmas party, and it was Queen, you know, it was Bohemian Rhapsody, and we were just like in the car with Alex. I don't remember who else was with us, but it was like, that was fun. But that's because like we all knew it from Wayne's World, and that was like the moment, you know, like those things are so fun. And yeah, I wish I knew the Cincinnati song too, but Il Cincy Wootsy.
It's also like, how can we have these teens get in a car accident without using alcohol in a kids movie?
Right. A snowstorm and some show tunes.
What's the most shenanigans song we can think of? The Cincinnati song. But yeah, I mean, and so I just put my joy from experiencing this movie forgives how poorly made a lot of it was, even for 86. Mm-hmm. And I would love to see a return to Toyland with this cast. Like, I'd love to see them go back.
You just want to redo it with this, or like a sequel with this cast?
Some kind of weird, bizarre sequel, but with the cast. They can even go darker. Like, they can, with those weird animals, like, they could make it pretty interesting.
I don't know if Barrymore would be into it, but they could have her, like, in her adulthood, have some, like, drug or alcohol issues, and she passes out and returns to Toyland.
I mean,
to bring it back.
we got like, there's obviously tons of directions it could go, you know, almost like the Bill and Ted remake where it's like, oh, the kids have to go and fix stuff or whatever. But I mean, I was reading on the IMDb that like Barrymore was like, she had been smoking and drinking for like 2 years when she filmed this thing. Like,
I saw that too.
She was partying at the time. And she was ready to go. I was like, oh my, that blows my mind that she was doing that. But well,
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, she's had a really,
poor kid.
Yeah, interesting life. Good thing she's come out of it pretty well, it seems like.
For sure.
I loved the townsfolk. So my favorite part, I mean, you have all these weird characters like Humpty Dumpty's in the background on several occasions with that weird kind of creepy face. I saw a part where like Raggedy Andy was there and like ready to brawl, and yeah, just all these oddball like these bunnies that like pop in and pop out, and like some of these scenes seem like they could be like in a creepy movie like Wicker Man or Midsommar. Like just the way that they're lined up and not saying anything, like there was a total creepy element to it. But my favorite part was when they're heading to the Forbidden Forest and there's this officer bear on duty, like guarding the gate, and they go and they undo the gate and he's just like, whoa.
I don't know.
And then just like lets him go.
That's what happens when you put a bear in charge. I don't know.
It's like, what are these guys doing anyways? Like, who's paying this bear to just let whoever goes go in there? Like, no one's like even questioning Barnaby. Like, they have all the power in the world to stop this guy and his two goons.
That was my whole thing from the get-go. Like, he accuses everyone's favorite son of stealing the cookies. They all fucking hate this guy and think he's evil. And they're like, yeah, he's probably right. It probably was the guy we like. You know, like, and I know we're picking nits on a movie that, you know, it felt, you know, could, if you're picking nits, it falls apart within the first 5 minutes. But like, it's just like at a certain point, you're like, come on, man, I'm trying to believe in this thing. I'm trying to stay in this. You got to help me out.
And I'm assuming like they have a way of communicating within themselves, but from our perspective, all the bears are mute. So it's like, why are you hiring a mute police officer? Like, who's he gonna alert? Like, they can't like warn anybody about this stuff. Like, they just all look at you like, I don't know, I don't talk.
Certainly not stopping anybody.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, this is just a costume.
If you're confronted, just throw your arms up in the air and act like you're put off.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, I'm like, while I'm thinking about it, at the end when they banish him outside, he's just outside the gates. Like, he's just barely outside. And like, it seems that he's being like ripped to shreds by those goblins, right? Like they just like annihilate him right outside the gates, and they're all just rejoicing and partying. Like, we did it. And this guy's just being like mauled to death right outside the gates. Like,
I mean, some of it just was like really intense though. Like the toy soldiers, and they come in with their guns, and it's like,
yeah, it's like they're bringing munitions
20 yards away, and then like with cannons and stuff. Like, oh wow, this took a turn. Like,
for real.
He is not a man of peace. Like,
yeah, I
expected
him to be like almost like basketballs or something shooting out of the
yeah,
cannon.
exactly.
Like, boom, like making candy. Funny noises.
It's like, yeah, Care Bears just like push you back with like their rainbows.
Yeah,
crazy.
Oh, that's funny. It is interesting when this. I'm sure when Laurel and Hardy did their version, and from what I could tell, it was a similar plot. Like, there is a Barnaby character that's trying to marry, like a Mother Goose character, and like cover, like is trying to force an arranged marriage. And it is interesting that you take a story coming out of like the Great Depression, or like not too far detached from the Great Depression, and maybe a story like that's a little more plausible and doesn't seem as weird.
Yeah.
For like a Laurel and Hardy movie, it's like, oh, maybe there were like creepy rich dudes that were trying to do stuff like that. You know, like, oh
for sure, take
care of you and let me just marry your daughter. But yeah, Disney remade it in 1961, which I guess you can watch on Disney Plus. I saw it on there. I haven't seen it myself, but to remake a movie in 86 and not like tweak the plot according to the times was another interesting decision.
Yeah.
And it just like, I mean, it made just to add to the bizarreness of everything.
And like,
it's absurd.
Now I'm remembering at one point, don't they try to pair up Mother Goose and Barnaby? Like,
And a mature man of the world like Mr. Barnaby should be free to marry a more elegant, glamorous woman of the world such as yourself.
She talks a lot of sense, that girl. I mean, that's not a half-bad idea. One thing is for sure, he's got to marry one of us or we're out.
Yeah.
They think he's evil and they're trying to get rid of him, but they're like, well, maybe we'll just have him marry her instead and keep this guy in our life. Like,
he has to marry someone in this house. It doesn't have to be you. It's like,
he can hang around.
Yeah. He's fine. I just don't want to marry him. That's all. Yeah.
Now I would be interested to hear, starting with Ben, what are 3 things that you would do to this movie to fix it for today or for yourself? Like, what are the 3? Obviously, there's many things that could be done to make this movie better, but like, if there were 3 things that you could do to fix it to make it like relevant today, what would they be?
I do have 3 things, and I'm going to go in order of importance. Number 1, first and foremost, Keanu Reeves brags about the fact that his Jeep can handle the snow fine, but in fact, he's driving a Suzuki.
I noticed that too.
Listen, if you're going to start this relationship off with a lie, I'm done. Like, I love you, Keanu, but
that was the first
Jeep
thing I said.
That is a Suzuki.
I didn't even notice that.
I'm just going to call all my cars Jeeps.
I'm going the Jeep. No, you drive 2 motorcycles that are taped together. Like, this is not a Jeep.
Maybe it's like maybe in Cincinnati, it's like in Atlanta they call everything Coke, even if you want to
exactly.
Every
Soda
car's
pop
a Jeep,
Coke.
it's just whether or not it's a pickup truck.
They're in the Jeep. This is a Mini Cooper. Like, it's my Jeep.
Man,
Let's
I'm
go.
glad you noticed that. I did too. That's funny.
So first and foremost, that's my biggest problem with this movie. I was honestly just like, that's a Suzuki. What are you doing? Anyways, number 2, I mentioned it before, but like, I just want more Pat Morita. Like, I feel like he could have been involved more in, I don't know, like solving stuff. I don't know exactly what it was, but just
maybe they couldn't afford him. Like, think about where he was at this time. They're like we get 20 minutes of Pat. So
exactly, you know, I have no idea. Like, there probably was that. Like, you get him for like 4 hours, get all your shots you need with him. So like, I totally get that. But for me, selfishly, I just want a little bit more of that.
That's fair.
I liked the reveal at the end, which I think obviously everybody saw coming, but like that could have been, a fun little thing as well. Or I wanted to see him when she wakes back up in Cincinnati. Like I wanted Pat Morita to be there, because like I saw everyone else. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
just like,
awesome.
He's the guy that's like, it's my mom's boyfriend or something, like, I don't know. Just like, I wanted to see him somewhere. Cause like you made up everybody else based off someone in your life. Who was Pat Morita? Like, I wanted to know who that person was. So,
I mean, she was concussed. It's not unthinkable to think that she could have just dreamt him up.
I mean, it's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is like, that was another thing I thought is like, she wakes up and she's talking about this crazy world she went to where there's toys and she believes in the power of toys. And it's like, you're not concerned about her at all. She's obviously concussed and speaking crazy. Like, this girl needs to be in a hospital. Like, what are you doing?
Like, she's good to go. Come on. My third fix, though, kind of goes along with what we talked about earlier as far as like Tyler mentioned, like, are these people in bear costumes or are these supposed to be bears? In my ideal world, you make this a Jim Henson movie. Like, let's make them all Muppets. Like, I think this is the way that's why it works with like a Christmas Carol, because like we're in that world. Mm-hmm. For me, that's the best way to fix this movie. Like, let's get rid of the personas and everything like that. Like, let's just have it all be Muppets. I think that's the best way to fix this movie. So yeah, those would be my 3 fixes.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Tyler, your 3?
Similar to Ben, like, I think I would prefer like a change of medium, and whether it's like either lead into like at least just better costumes, not just something you can buy at the mascot store or the Halloween store or whatever, like, so I guess the first thing I would do to fix it would be like spread out the budget a little bit or increase the budget ideally. Yeah. I think I would the second thing I would do is try to pick a lane as far as like the tone of it, because I was thinking I was thinking about it, like, this movie should work, right? Like, you could see why this thing got greenlit. Like, this thing should work. Like, it hits all the boxes. It's like whimsical, it's fantasy, it's Christmas, it's feel good, like bad guys lose, good guys win, like pretty cookie cutter movie. Mm-hmm. And like, so I was thinking like something like Elf, right? Where that's like very, very surreal. It's very like whimsical and nonsensical. It's like not based in any reality at all, but you buy into it and it works because they pick a lane and it's like, they pick a tone and they stick to it. Right. Mm-hmm. Whereas Babes in Toyland was just like, it was both like picking on itself. There was like some meta in-joke to it. And then it also at times seemed like it was trying to be like earnest and serious. There was times when it was trying to be a kid's movie. And then there was times with the line I keep picking on about a man of peace and not war. like what is this dialogue all of a sudden? Like, we went from there's trouble in the cookie factory to a man of peace or a man of war. Like, yeah, that's pretty crazy. Or like when Barnaby breaks or rushes into the factory and says, "Time for a cookie break." It's like, you can't have that line and the peace and war line in the same movie. Cookie break. Like, you just, I don't know. So yeah, increase the budget. I would say pick a lane, and then I would say find some consistency in your medium. I think this would be a cool animated movie. Like, even if it was animated, like, it'd almost be cool to see it like a Roger Rabbit style, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Like, she's real and everyone else is animated or whatever. Or just like full animation or claymation, like the old like Rudolph movies or something. I think any of those things, you could almost take this exact same movie with the same dialogue and just like shoot it different with the consistent tone, and I think it would work, really.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, to your point of like picking a lane, we've talked about this other movies too, which is like choose which one you want to go with, like whether you want to go super campy or super serious, and just like pedal to the metal. Like, let's go with it, but you can't be like it's a cookie break, you know, and just like go into like, all this like War and Peace talk in the same movie.
And then have a man ripped limb from limb by the evil goblins he created. Like,
exactly.
What the fuck?
It's so weird.
Like when they're acting like monsters, I'm like, how long did that scene take to film? Like, how much film stock did they burn?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Drew Barrymore is like cracking up in half of this movie.
For sure.
Her lines and stuff.
I want to meet the guy on set that was like coaching Drew and Keanu, like, guys, this is your shot. You nailed this role. You guys could go on to much bigger and better things. This is
you
it.
have no idea who's going to see this. You really commit.
My three things, I mean, I agree with everything that you guys said. Obviously, in fact, I put like better puppets and sort of taking a Jim Henson route as well on one of mine. One of my things I think would make it immediately better is shorter and better musical numbers. And I'm not anti-musical by any stretch of the imagination. I love musicals. As much as I love musicals, and I'll watch as many as I can, I love them. I've never felt like at the end of a musical number, I've never felt, I wish that would have gone on a little longer.
Yeah.
I always feel like, if anything, musical numbers can always be cut shorter. And these ones weren't great. And so, especially Barnaby's song, that was bad.
Yeah. And like, I almost feel like it wasn't even a musical. Just for some reason in those moments, everyone sang. Like,
yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
it didn't structure itself to be a musical. It was like, it had 3 random musical numbers and then pretty much nothing else.
Right.
Musical.
And I mean, if they're trying to copy the Wizard of Oz, it makes sense. Like, they want to have like, we're off to see the wizard. You know, they want that moment for the movie. So they're like, we got to shoehorn 3 songs into this thing. I don't care how you do it. Like the studio producer at CBS or whoever, ran this.
Yeah.
Thing. It's like, I need like 3 musical numbers.
The contractually obliged, like at least 3. One of them has to be about the town of Cincinnati, but that's like the minimum requirement. I feel like all 43 missing minutes is just singing. That's probably the other 15 songs that were supposed to be in here. But
they're probably
they took Matt's advice. Then they cut some of the musical numbers. That's the other 43 minutes.
Yeah. They could have cut a few more, but they were probably like, "Hey guys, let's give a surprise for Barry. Let's have the Cincinnati song save the day.
Right?
Let's have them sing it again in prison, and that'll be the song that saves everybody." And then my last thing to improve the movie would be to do so Ben, you'd kind of mentioned this with Mother Goose characters maybe not being relevant anymore, and I got thinking of what could they do like in place of that to make it more relevant to now? And I think that's just like a better mashup of IP, similar to what we see in like Wreck-It Ralph, where we see there's Sonic, there's the Street Fighter dude, there's this. It's like, make a town full of stuff like that. In fact, this could be Wreck-It Ralph 3. You could do something cool where everybody recognizes everybody, and even though they're not playing a huge role, it's just fun to see because we didn't grow up in the 1930s. We don't really care about seeing Humpty Dumpty sitting on the wall. We know that story.
Yeah, like Tyler said, I think this lends itself to a Roger Rabbit style thing, because that's Roger Rabbit's one of my favorites, from childhood, and just the idea the dueling pianos of Daffy Duck and Donald Duck going back and forth. Give us some more stuff like that, and you can do that with the modern day characters now. And you're right. I think today's equivalent is perfect with the Wreck-It Ralph, just all these different IPs coming together for, I think that would work really well.
Yeah, for sure. We fixed it, guys.
This movie. Yep.
We did it.
Keanu.
Still getting Keanu.
So wait. Adam Driver is for sure Barnaby, right?
Yes. Or the love interest, one or the other.
Jack. I could see him being Jack.
I just want him to be, creepy. I want him to have that giant thumbnail.
Who are you?
I'm Lisa Piper, and I'm from Cincinnati.
Cincy Watsky?
Which was the other thing I remembered from this movie. I remembered the thumbnail and Cincy Watsky. That's pretty much it.
I was seeing, maybe it's just the way the guy's face was in this movie, but I kept seeing Alec Baldwin as Barnaby.
I could see that. I mean, make Keanu either the toy master now or just like whoever like the mayor person was, and throw Adam Driver in as Jack. I think, yeah, this would be a fun movie to redo.
If it gets remade, you guys heard it here first. Babes in Toyland, we brought it back.
And I want my royalties.
It's coming back.
They're going to steal our ideas. They're going to use IP.
I know Kathleen Kennedy listens to this pod.
Yeah. Okay, so last part of the episode, to wrap this up, we always have to finish with a Rushmore Mountain. Or I think, given that this is a Drew Barrymore movie, more fitting, Barrymore Mountain.
These are OR scrubs.
Oh, are they?
Tyler, who do you got in your Barrymore Mountain?
Well, it's a great question. I don't know. I don't remember if I'm sure we did. Did we talk about doing Drew Barrymore, Rushmore? Like before tonight?
No.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Cool. Because I didn't prepare anything. So we're going to do this live. I was talking to you guys before we started recording. Like the way I usually approach Rushmore Mountain is like when I hear the person's name, like what immediately jumps to my mind. Yeah. Because to me, that's like, if it's stuck with me long enough to be at the top of my mind, then it's gotta be good. So I would put Scream on there.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. What comes to mind?
Halloween. You know, the one with the guy in the white mask who walks around and stalks babysitters?
Yeah.
What's yours?
Guess.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Is that the one where the guy had knives for fingers?
Yeah, Freddy Krueger.
Freddy, that's right. I like that movie. It was scary.
Wow, well, the first one was, but the rest sucked.
So, you got a boyfriend?
Why? You want to ask me out on a date?
Maybe. Do you have a boyfriend?
No.
You never told me your name.
Why do you want to know my name?
I want to know who I'm looking at.
What did you say?
That was the first thing I thought of. I like, I'm not a huge horror movie fan, but I did see Scream. I think I've seen it a couple of times. But anyways, I would put that on there. The Wedding Singer for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I would put on there. It's not a great movie. Well, I mean, it's a fun movie. I'd put 50 First Dates on there. I think she's like fun and cute and charming. I mean, she always is, but that's definitely one that comes to mind. And gosh, man, what else has Drew Barrymore been in? I'm actually surprised, like going through her list. Like I've seen Charlie's Angels. I didn't love it, so I can't really put that on there. But I haven't seen a lot of the stuff she's been in. I don't remember Never Been Kissed Well Enough. So I guess just by default, I'd have to put E.T. on there. Yeah, that's what got the ball rolling for.
Nice.
So yeah, I'll let that round out. There's plenty of honorable mentions that I have seen, but I just don't remember them well enough to be able to speak on. So I'll go with those four.
It's great. Great list, Ben.
My Rushmore Mountain, if my high school French teacher had any influence, it would just be Ever After, dubbed in French, because we watched that a lot whenever she didn't want to teach us. But that will not be making my list. My list I think we just have one. So what was your list, Tyler? It was Scream, 50 First Dates, E.T.
And The Wedding
Singer.
Wedding Singer. Okay, cool. Yeah. Mine, we have a couple crossovers. The first one that I thought of is Scream. I think that movie, her role is like small but so significant in that movie, and for my money, it's the best one since Psycho that's like led you to believe someone's going to be the protagonist, and then suddenly they're just gone. It's like, oh wait, this movie is not with Drew Barrymore. Okay, got it. Like, yeah. And just the power that like her celebrity and just like her influence had at that time to be like, oh, a Drew Barrymore movie, this is awesome. And then she's just out of there. And also a chance to shout out my number one crush more, Nev Campbell. So Scream would definitely make my pick. I mean, how many times has that opening scene been like redone or, you know, just like, oh, it's like, I don't know. It's so good.
It's funny. Like I think of Scream as being a Drew Barrymore movie, even though I know it's not.
Yeah.
And I know, it's just like when I think of Scream, I think of Drew Barrymore. So.
And that's how they were marketing it, right? I believe like at the time it's just like, and that, so that works so well. I also have The Wedding Singer on my list. I think, I don't know how many times, like if I ever meet a Julia, it's like Julia Gulia. Like it's just the first thing that comes to my mind. I don't know anyone who doesn't think that. Like,
Julia's last name is going to be Gulia. Julia Gulia. That's funny.
Her name's going to be Julia Gulia. Like,
imagine if you had one of those that no one else knew about, like Cincy Watsky.
Oh, yeah.
It would torture you.
A little Cincy Watsky.
You could never say Julia Gulia without people looking at you weird.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I said it earlier when Matt came on. I was like, what's up, big haircut? And I'm like, The Office is super random for people to know. But I think about that all the time when someone has a haircut. Like, oh, what's up, big haircut?
Let it do. What's up, big haircut? You are no longer Big Tuna. From henceforth, you shall be known as Big Haircut.
Andy,
what? Big Haircut?
No.
Sorry, I can't hear you, big haircut.
Yep.
What?
But for me, I think Wedding Singer was the first compilation soundtrack that I really knew about, if that makes sense. Like we, carpooling to school, and the people that I went with, they had, volumes 1 and 2 of The Wedding Singer. And it's like, oh, this is awesome. I don't know that there were any other soundtracks like that, that were like hits from the 80s or something along those lines that I really listened to. I just always picture Wedding Singer when I think of that. And the closing scene on the airplane, all that stuff. Like, I just think it's, and then Buscemi, like The Wedding Singer is one of the best.
So good, man.
I thought about 50 First Dates because I really like that too, but I just made some weird choice to not have 2 Adam Sandler movies on here. So I am replacing it with one of my guilty pleasure movies, which is Fever Pitch, with Jimmy Fallon.
Still great.
That movie is so wonderful to me. Jimmy Fallon's not actually like a really great actor in general, like, especially not on SNL.
He's
like
just Jimmy.
He broke up as much as like Sandler did on, Weekend Update, but he's charming in this and I buy it, like, oh, this works and their relationship works, and just like taking care of her when he's sick. Like I like Fever Pitch a lot. I think it's one of her better rom-coms. And then number 4 for me is Whip It.
Men, hold on to your cookies. It's the Hurl Scouts! Number 99, captain of the Hurl Scouts, Maggie Mayhem. Number 69, Bloody Holly. Number 3, Rosa Smarks. Number 2, Smashley Simpson.
She starred in it, but it was also a movie that she directed. And I love that movie. Julia Lewis, Ellen Page, like about the women's roller derby. And yeah, honestly, like if I had to only take one of these with me, this is probably the movie I'd take out of these 4. Like I love Whip It. The soundtrack is wonderful. Zoe Bell, who was Uma Thurman's stunt woman in, all the Tarantino movies and was in, I'm drawing a blank on it right now, but Death Proof, she's in it. Like it's a great cast. It's a fun movie. Kristen Wiig. So yeah, Whip It would take up my number 4 spot. Obviously, some of the honorable mentions, like you said, Charlie's Angels. Like I think those are fun movies. She's probably my least favorite of the 3. She's still really fun, but I like that movie a lot. And then E.T. and 50 First Dates would take up my honorable mentions.
Awesome. Dang, I have to add that Whip It to my watch list.
Yeah, for sure.
That sounds awesome. So my Barrymore Mountain would include Julia Sullivan from The Wedding Singer in the top spot, followed by Dylan Sanders from Charlie's Angels Full Throttle, the second one.
Okay.
Yeah, Tom Green.
Reason being is because there's I don't remember anything about either of those movies except one scene, and I still to this day think it's hilarious, even though I haven't seen it in probably since it came out. But there's one scene that just like stays in my mind. So just a recap of that movie, if I remember everything correctly, Drew Barrymore has this ex-abusive boyfriend named Seamus, who's a really bad dude, and like when she was a teenager, she witnessed him like kill people, and so he's always kind of wanted to, I guess, take her out because she knows or whatever. I don't remember the exact plot, but anyways, my favorite scene in that movie is there's a flashback. They're like hanging out, like partying in his convertible, and they're singing Bon Jovi at the top of their lungs. And he's like, "Hey, 1 second." And he like parks his car and he gets out. And like, as he's walking away, she's like, "I love you, Seamus. I would die for you." And for whatever reason, I just think about that and it's like hilarious to me. Like, I think she even has like braces in that scene. Like,
nice.
Just such a hilarious scene. Hopefully we can find a clip of it.
I love you! I would die for you, Seamus!
And then he like kills someone like right in front of her. So it's an interesting scene there. But yeah, so that'd be my second spot. My third spot would be Sophie Fisher from Music and Lyrics.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like Tyler, there's a lot of movies that I've seen Drew Barrymore in, but I don't remember her like individual performance super well in a lot of them. So I'm kind of just like putting up movies where I remember her at least to some extent. And then I do have to go with Lucy Whitmore from 51st Dates.
You got him! Enough! Are you okay?
Yes,
okay,
yes.
I'll be right back. Hey,
Come
come
here!
here!
No, I think he's had enough! Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, my eye!
You got him!
Not good enough!
He learned his lesson.
What's your name?
My name's Henry. You did good.
Hi, sorry, I'm in a community watch program and...
Oh, you crazy bitch!
Yeah, keep running!
Okay, he's going.
I'm going to break that sound the rule and throw two of them on there.
Hey man, we make the rules, we can break the rules.
Exactly.
That's right.
And I'm remembering that Jimmy Fallon is in Whip It. They're not a love interest, but he's also in that. So whatever, my rule doesn't really matter. Well, I love 50 First Dates. Sean Astin alone is reason enough that I probably should have put that on there.
Oh man. Yeah. No, it's great. And my honorable mention would be Fever Pitch. I had Fever Pitch on my list originally, and it was like one of those things with like, do I just enjoy this movie or do I enjoy Drew Barrymore in this movie? And honestly, like it's probably both, but I ended up putting 50 First Dates on there.
Nice.
Just the way that it was. Is there anything anyone else would like to add to Babes in Toyland or Drew Barrymore before we wrap this baby up?
Yeah, I do. I forgot that she was, I almost want to put it on there, but she's not in the movie long enough, I don't think, to warrant, although Matt has her on his Rushmore on one of his for a single scene. So I guess it would still count. But she's the teacher, like the English literature teacher in Donnie Darko. And she has the scene about how she says the most beautiful words in the English language is cellar door. And I thought that was a really cool role. I thought she was like, it was cool in it, or she was cool in it, in that role. But so I would put her there as an honorable mention, I guess, for Donnie Darko, because I don't remember her being in it enough to really warrant a spot. But I to borrow from the rewatchables, I would say she was like the what's their category, the sixth man award or something.
The Dion Waiters award.
Yeah, the Heat Check award. That's right. She comes in
award,
and pitches a few strikeouts and leaves. I would say, honorable mention Donnie Darko.
And another good connector for Patrick Swayze, with Keanu and Drew Barrymore. So for cinephiles, just log that away.
Yeah, cinephile players, please take notes. Yes. Make sure you get that down. Cool. No, that's a great pick out. As always, we just want to make a plug for our Patreon. We've got some cool options there for anyone who wants to kind of join at that level and contribute and be a bigger part of this movie club experience that we have going on. We'd love to have people on. So if you're listening and you're like, oh man, I'd love to talk about one of these movies, please DM us on any social platform. If you know us personally, you can text us. We want people on. We want to talk about movies with you. And most of all, we just want you to watch these movies along with us. Tonight, I'm going to be posting our schedule through January. So if you're listening to this, it's already been on our social media, so you can go back and look at that schedule. But that'll be on there, and we'd love for you to see what sounds good to you and watch some of these so that we can talk about it. But thanks again for listening. We really enjoy doing these and talking about movies, and we love interacting with you. So have a great night, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, guys.
Remember that time in Puerto Rico when we picked up those two, well, I guess they were prostitutes, but I don't remember paying.
Okay, how about that? How about that? Yeah, what?
Terrific.
Huh?
I'm a person too, Pop, goddammit. I'm a person too.
You're a moron.
Okay. The best man, everybody.
Best man, the better man.
Hey, we've all done crazy things in our lives, so. He's playing the guitar now, isn't that great? He's doing good.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
Let's go, some of the best guitar player in the world. Yeah, self-taught, no lessons. Thank you very much, Pop.